Hi guys, it's Karen again from sunny Florida. Beautiful day here. And this is part 2 of sweat soldering with soft solder. On the first one we used metal stamps to provide some texture and then to continue with the project. I introduced initially us possibly using this little embossing machine. It's a mini machine, Sizzix, and it's called SideKick. These come with small plates, one of which I've already managed to break, and you can get smaller embossing folders and such for these. Lots to choose from. Anyway, a lot kind of goes into this project initially, which is what I would start out with, and I'll talk about it a little bit. On the last one, I showed you how I utilize just plain old aluminum foil and fold it over many times to kind of create a faux metal sheet so that I can use some of these little cards, embossing folders, to see what they'll look like once they're really run through the machine, to get an idea of what designs I would like. Now, I had a lot of full-sized embossing folders, though I don't have a full-size machine yet, and that may be something I add to my arsenal later. But what I did was I took some of these larger full-size folders and cut them down so they would fit through the machine, because I'm making jewelry, I'm not making cards. And so that's what I did with a lot of them. And again, so you use your aluminum foil and run it through the machine to get an idea. So that's the first thing I do with figuring out what designs I want. And I kind of settled on this. I like the birds in this, and I had previously done one, and I'll try to remember to put those couple up to show you what I've previously made, also utilizing the soft solder. But anyway, I wanted to maybe do an oval pendant this time, and thought I would cut the foil down to see what the smaller ones would look like, and then considering what type of stones we're going to actually soft solder. We've got some little moonstones. I don't know if you can see the flash in these. They're really cute, but small. And Labradorite. Those are probably two of my all-time favorites. Stones that I like to work with, just because I'm flashy kind of gal. But we'll see. This one might be too big, and who knows? You never know, right? Especially with me. So anyway, it's going to be on copper sheeting. I may use a different metal sheet later, but so these are the two I picked. I may just do both of them, not sure. I haven't decided on which I like the best. But this is a 26 gauge, so it's kind of thin, but it'll be okay for a small pendant, really. And plus it'll be work hardened by running it through the machine and hammering it and all that good stuff. Even though when we do the soft soldering, that will anneal it and soften it again. But so then the other thing when you're experimenting with your design and whatnot, using the machine, because these plates are really designed for working with paper, and I'm working with metal, so it's a different kind of beast, as they say. So typically you would put your, your paper or whatever in between and have your paper in your embossing folder and do one of these with the plate and whatnot. But because it's metal, it's going to be too thick. So you have to experiment. Like I said, I already broke this one. You don't want to force it through. And it was going okay, but then I heard a snap. So, anywho, the point I'm trying to make is you have to experiment. And what I believe I ended up using was one of these, the embossing folder, which I did like this, and put this down. And then I think I used another folder to replicate this other plate. And you just have to experiment with to see if this will go. And this is kind of too thin. It's not grabbing it to impress on it hard enough. So that's when you can then turn to either some cardstock, or I just use business cards, and stack that to see if we get a little bit better. That's a better fit. But I'm even going to go with one more and see if this, yeah, when it just gives you a little resistance, then you know that's probably a good fit. So now this could change, keep in mind, once I add the copper sheeting instead of the foil. So we'll see as we move along. But just wanted to give you an idea about everything that's kind of involved with just prepping for this project. It's a lot, but it's a lot of fun. And what better way to enjoy your day than to have some fun and be creative. So I'm going to do the next step, which is cutting out a piece of copper and figuring out the height and the level, all that good stuff of how thick I want this to give me a good impression. So we'll be back with that. So I think these are the two designs that I'm going to attempt to do. I like this Labradorite. It's quite flashy. And kind of do it in an angle here. I think it'll be cute. And then on this one, this is something else that's pretty cool about this. So this is the raised area of one of these. You can also use the inverted area, which is what I did in a previous one, so that the black paint or whatever is going to be held down in the recessed areas, right? And I think then I'm going to use this little moonstone kind of as, it might mimic like a vase, a vase, or something. We'll see. So that's the plan. And I've cut out, this is about 1.5 inches wide. You can see that this wasn't exactly squared piece of copper, but that's okay. This one will cut out about here, and that'll leave us plenty of room to play with that one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off right about here. And yep, once again, I'm just using these regular old shears to cut this in half. So this will go with this piece. And we're just going to do one at a time, and hopefully it won't take forever. And then this will fit on here. Okay, so I'm going to tap this out a little bit before we run it through the mill. Okay? And now I'm going to take this piece of copper, line up my piece this way, close this folder, I want to run it through first. Let's see, that's not near thick enough. So we'll try putting this one on top. And that might work. Let's try if it'll even go through. No, it's too thick. Okay. So, can't use this embossing pad. We can't use this other thick plate because it's too much. Better stick that in there a little bit better. So we're going to have to try and use one of these other folders. And my guess is that it's going to be too thin, that it'll go You can see it goes through without any resistance. So we'll put one card. And that's pretty thick there. It's giving me a good resistance. Put that through and run it back through a couple times just to make sure. Go ahead and put another card on top. See if we can get a little bit more resistance. It's too much. Okay. That's not going to give us what we want. I wanted to really try and make sure I get a good impression, but that's not happening even with just that width of a business card. So let's try just a piece of foil. Might just be what we need. Okay, that was just enough. Now it's really tight, which means we'll get a much better impression. I'm going to run it through a couple of times, back and forth. And let's see if it worked. And it did. It's not a great impression. I'm not happy with that at all. That won't really give me the desired effect. And because I really wasn't happy with that depth of the impression, I had the idea of, since we're here, just using my steel block and give this a couple of pounds on this. After all, can't make it really any worse. And gave it a couple of pounds. And much better. Much closer to the original one. So that I can definitely work with. It didn't pick up the exact details of that tail, but I could try it again and focus my hammering on that area, but we'll see. Again, you never know until you try. Might as well try. Focusing right on that tail. Let's see. A little bit better. You can see at least a little split in the tail there. Okay, so that'll work. That will definitely work. Yeah, like that. And let's go ahead and try this impression. That would be with this. And what did I do with the copper? And here's the other piece of copper. We're going to put it in here, and I'm kind of thinking, since we know what happened with the last one where the impression wasn't quite great, but this folder could be different, so let's just see. Again, you don't know. Now this little machine has this thing and it'll lock down, but not so much on this pad, and I didn't feel like removing everything. I could have, but so I'm just going to give this a try again and see if this will even fit through. My guess is that it won't. No, way too thick. How about with one of the folders? This might also be too thick. Yeah. Okay, how about if I open this folder, reducing the thickness. Not very much resistance. Putting a card in there and see what we get. A little bit, but not enough. Add a second card and see if, oh, that feels good. Run it back and forth a few times. And then I'm also holding this down, grab my block. Might as well make sure that's all pretty lined up as it was. Give it a few taps, especially around the tinier details that it might not have picked up a good impression on. Watch your fingers. Let's see. Not too bad. And the reverse, if you decide to use that. And this, I think I'm going to use the Moonstone. Okay, so that's that part of it. And here's the comparison of the aluminum foil versus using the copper. You definitely lose some definition in the depth, but you can get a pretty good impression with these little machines. And we'll see what the final products look like. Now, when considering the shape of this, I experimented a little bit with this template, these templates, and I kind of feel like I like this round one because it picks up a little bit of the impressions from all the way around. So I think I'm going to go with that and then trace this. Get this to where it's pretty flat. Take that off now. Turn this. This is a little awkward, is why I'm struggling here a little bit. So I'd like it to be a fairly flat surface. And again, this doesn't have to be exact. Nothing with me really ever is. Was that the right shape? And trace this out, getting a rough estimate. Sorry, my little dog thinks somebody's outside, maybe the mailman. Okay, so I'm going to cut that out and come back. And here's this one. I cut on the outside of the marking, so keeping in mind I still have to file all of this and make it nice and smooth. So I wanted to give myself plenty of room. So there's that. We're going to do the same thing with this piece. figure out, do we want an oval? Which side? That's kind of big, isn't it? That's probably... Oh, it says right there. That is 52 millimeters by 38. So 52 this way. .52 millimeters by 38 millimeters. That's pretty big. Or we can do this kind of shape. I like that. Or a little bit wider at the top. Pick up. I don't really care about the pumpkin down here. We're not in pumpkin season. I don't really care about that. I'm most interested in this area. And this will fit right down in here. And like I said, almost mimic like the vase or the container. You can always do that way. I don't know. Kind of like the oval. These hearts are not big enough. All right, let's get serious. We like all these shapes. I do. Forget about the pumpkin at the bottom. Let's evaluate and see how much of this we can actually pick up. That would work. I like that. Or a little bit wider. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna go with this shape. Come on, marker. And I'll cut that out as well and be back. And here's this one. And we'll put a jump ring at the top. And haven't decided, but I think I'm gonna use this recessed part on this one and the raised part on this one. Okay, on to smoothing these out using my Dremel and a sanding barrel and some wet dry sandpaper. Sorry, I was thinking. I'm always kind of thinking ahead and sometimes forget I'm talking to you guys. So I'm going to sand these down, probably then move on to getting these copper foiled and burnished, and then we'll move on to the soldering process and talk about coloring, because yes, you can use alcohol inks. You can go with just the black acrylic to fill in the recessed areas. I may even put a patina on this and then just polish the raised bird, which will come back to a copper. So this will all be kind of antiqued, but these raised areas will be more of a brighter copper. So that might look cool. All right, moving on. And here's the nice and smooth edges on both pieces. Okay. I'm back, and as you saw, I decided to actually do the patina on both of these. And I like both sides. I think they're pretty cool. So even though this is patinaed in the recessed areas on this side, and you can take it to whatever finish, take as much off as you want, leave as much. It's all about what strikes you. So this is the opposite side of it. And I haven't yet decided. I'm thinking this side. This will be the Moonstone. And then this is the little bird. And that came out pretty cool. I was actually thinking this would be the best side because it really shows the bird. And I flattened this area right here, hoping that it would assist with a better adhesion when we go to do the sweat soldering. So there's that, which I like a lot. Or this side. I think I prefer this side. It's a little bit more subdued, but yet you can still clearly see it's a bird. So that would be that. Let's have a look at this. Something like that. Cute. Or with more of the recessed side. I think I like, again, the raised better. So now we're going to do the actual sweat soldering. Well, we're going to solder these as we normally would any piece. And then we'll go on and hopefully get a better, smoother sweat soldering on these pieces than in part 1. And here we go. Got a clean tip. Iron is set on about 370 or so, which is Celsius, so it's quite hot. We don't need a thick layer because we're going to be sweat soldering it. I just turned it down a little bit to about 350 Celsius because it was a little bit too hot. And again, we don't need a whole lot for this part. It doesn't have to look perfect because this is going to be sweat soldered onto the sheet metal. And of course we fluxed it already. I'm using Silvergleem. Love that stuff. And now that I don't waste as much, I'm confident enough to purchase this because, as I've mentioned before, it's triple the cost. Well, I'll say double the cost, but because it comes in half the quantity, so for a half a roll is the same price as for a whole pound roll of any other product. And again, I'm not spending a whole lot of time on this section. Okay, now on to the sweat soldering part. Again, using a Bernzomatic, I think I said Burnishing or Bernzomatic, or I mispronounced the name. I got this at Home Depot. It was about $30. It's considered a micro torch. And I've got my little tripod with my mesh screen, and we're going to heat from underneath, and it doesn't take long. So I'm going to start the torch, push the button that keeps the flame going. I'm going to heat it from underneath until we see that stone drop into place. You'll see it kind of settles in as that melts. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. There it goes. You can see the solder forming from around it. I think that's plenty, so at least we can evaluate it. And oh, we got a pretty flame coloring on the copper as well. So to leave that is an option. You can see, I don't want to touch it, it's certainly hot. And you can see the solder melted, not in all areas, so I'm going to address that. On to the next one. Start the torch. Hit the on, stay on button. Heat from underneath. And just keep an eye that it doesn't shift too much. And keep an eye on, you'll see the solder start to melt around it. The stone tends to drop down a little bit, and then you can see the solder start to flow around it. Let's evaluate that. And stones don't typically can't tolerate that much heat, but because we're not going very long, they tolerate it pretty well. And you see I can still move it because that copper is hot. So we'll evaluate that. Seems like there may be a little bit missing over on this far side. But it's hard for me to address these particular things on camera because I keep knocking the camera and whatnot. So let me let that cool a few minutes to where the stone doesn't raise up, and we'll see what we can see. Let's have a closer look. Okay, there's a couple of areas that the solder didn't flow like the other sides, but we're going to try to address that a little bit more with the soldering iron. This isn't always possible, and again, much harder to do filming, but I'm going to try. Put a little bit more flux on that area. And these are not going to look like sterling silver hard soldering pieces by any means, so I don't want to mislead y'all. But I think it's still a lovely idea, and it works. Works good enough for me. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of solder with the iron and melt it so that it goes into the areas where we missed it a little bit. Because last time I put way too much solder. This time you'll notice I didn't put any solder on the metal before firing up the torch. So, so there's a fine balance, excuse me. Try to get this corner here where it's pretty visible. Let me do this off camera. I'm gonna try and fill that in. Okay, got that a little bit just by taking the soldering iron, putting a little bit more solder on and just melting it. And because gravity and the flux will tell it to move down. Now if I held it up this way and did it this way, it would run, you know, the down direction. So all right, let me get these pieces cleaned up and maybe a polish again. I have to clean them, and then I'm going to apply the copper patina for soldering, for the solder. It only works on solder, not on copper or sterling silver or anything. So I'll be back. After washing these up with just dish detergent, I use Dawn because it has like a little bit of a, I guess, a degreaser type chemical in it. It's what they use to wash birds after oil spills and whatnot. So just a little dab of that, and I use a little toothbrush and scrub-a-dub-a-dub, warm water. I like it because it's kind of reversible, right? And this is what it looks like before the application of this Novacan Super Bright Copper Patina for solder, not for sterling silver, not for copper, not for any kind of metals, just solder. And again, y'all know that I do not dab in and out of the container because of cross-contamination. That can easily happen, and why contaminate a whole 8 ounces with one little swipe? So I pour a little bit in the lid, a little bit on there, and as we figured out, or I figured out last time, and I'm going to put it to the test again, is the piece has to be really well washed to remove any of the flux. It has to be very, very dry, so don't skip those two methods. The other thing I learned was to protect your stone from this chemical because it can ruin the finish of it. So I try to be very mindful. The other thing was, even with cross-contamination, if I do several dabs using this, I'll wipe this all up and put in some new of the patina solution and start over. Same with, I switch out clean Q-tips frequently and make sure I'm cleaning this off to start over again. So let's start with applying this. And the other thing was I learned to kind of rub it. So I think the action of rubbing it, look at that, wow. And the biggest thing, I believe, is what solder you're using. I tried it with 2 different solders. It did not have good effects at all. And the other 2 solders I used was the Harris. I don't have them out right now. Oh, here they are. The Sterling. It's misleading because it's not sterling copper. That's the name of it. But the company is Harris. And it's sterling premium lead free. This is, excuse me, Silvergleem, I guess, by Lucas. So their metal makeups, I believe, are a little bit different if you research that. Whereas the Silvergleem, to me, is just hands down better than any of those. So again, I'm trying to keep the solution away from the stone, rubbing it as I'm applying it. I only bring the toothbrush in if this kind of stops working, so we'll see. We shall see, but so far, I don't know if you guys can see that, it's pretty good. And the more you apply it, I think the better results you get. Wow. So for me, look at, the Q-tips are the best applicators. They say you can use a toothbrush. And so that's also helping to hide the seam where it attached to the sheet metal. Keeping my stone clean. And I don't know if you guys can notice, but that heat did crack this little moonstone, unfortunately. But it's so minimal. And you see it right down here. You can feel it. So if I did sell this, I would definitely let them know that there's a flaw in the stone. But I may just keep this for myself. So it seems as if the more you apply it, the brighter this will come. And I actually haven't swapped this out. So look at that. Pretty good, actually, especially from the differences I've had with using different copper. So I won't use this. We'll see if this has any effect on this. And no, let me zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. Look at, wow. Well, it's not going to be, well, that's pretty close. I'm surprised. So once I switch to Silvergleem, I actually, almost everything I do now is easier. Whereas I struggled so much with just about everything. But the other great thing is finally getting a good soldering iron that keeps its consistent heat. Because that was so frustrating. I mean, you're literally in the middle of applying some more solder on top of some solder you've already laid. And it's like, it feels like there's no heat. I mean, it's not doing anything. And it's so frustrating because it's hotter than the dickens, because you've got the setting up, but it's just not cutting it. Now for this, because it doesn't seem, I can't kind of get this down in that seam, I may try this little toothbrush just to get down in there. And yep, I guess that's what that's for. is to get down in the seam. Wow. Whoops. Sorry. Darn it. Still learning with the filming, but you know what? I'm enjoying the whole process, and I enjoy your comments and have a lot of ideas. Okay, so this is it, and it came out really well. Wow, look at that. Very cool. And like I said, it's reversible. Isn't that sweet? And this one, very cool. I think it's just unusual, and I like unusual. So I believe you're not supposed to, I have to read it again, but it just says wipe away excess solution. It does not say to rewash this with soap and water, because I think I tried that before and it just turns it back to a dull, like a pewter color. Okay, so I'm gonna maybe give this a little extra polish with maybe a polishing. Let me do that on camera. How's that? But let me clean this up. And then again, clean up for this is you just sop up this excess, unless you're going to use it fairly quickly. You'll want to throw your junk away and then rinse the rest. This is good and dry now. And this is what I'm going to polish up. This is Pro polishing pads. And I get these on Amazon. They're not cheap. These are 2x2 squares, and I think, well, yeah, 20 comes in this packet. I want to say they were like $15 or so, but man, they're amazing. If I could afford it, I would love to include this. Look at, wow. Include this in all my sold pieces, but maybe eventually I will. But right now, I just give them a good polish before they hit the door. I put an anti-tarnish strip in each package, and that helps. But these polishing pads are just amazing, and look at the difference. And you can see, it really worked well. But because of the expense, and I'm pretty new and on limited funds, but these will last a long time. I reuse them till they're almost got holes in them, but I brought out a new one for this demonstration. But you can see some old ones that still work. Let's see. Just not as well, because they're, well, they do work. So don't throw them away. You know, get as much use out of them as you possibly can. It's worth it. But for this demonstration, because I want to get around these edges, I got the new pad out. You can also use, these come in handy, these skewer sticks, because they're pointed on one end and kind of flat on this end. Sometimes I'll just use that flat end just to get in there. And it helps. So there's that. I love them. I think they're adorable. How cute. So see what you can do? Amazing. Just amazing. Just gotta think outside the box, really. So let me get my hole puncher and figure out what we're gonna do for the bail, and probably do a black cord, but I don't know if I should do the corners on this. I think that's what I'll do. And then black cords on them. So I'll be back. And we're back with the finished product. So for that I use this ImpressArt hole puncher. Works real well. My favorite Xuron tweezer nose pliers. And then this is a Beadsmith bent nose pliers. I experimented with pre-made bales. I like this fine on this one. This I just put jump rings in there and used like an antique jump ring. Also experimented with cords versus chains, and really it's just your personal style. I really like the black cord, seems to be my go-to when I'm selling jewelry, because then the customer can get home and do whatever they want. They can get their own chain and put it on one of their favorites, whatever. But so I went with a black cord for this. I think it came out really, really cute. Really cute. And then this, I had a fancy copper chain, looks really cool when it's hanging from it. It hangs just at the edge. That looks cool, huh? And again, the back looks pretty cool. So I don't know about you, but I'm in love with these, and I'll have a couple of pictures at the end of the video of ones I did probably when I first started, just experimenting with things, because I have these ideas and I'm like, I wonder. And then I have to try it or I'll lose sleep. And I'm not kidding about that. But those I used alcohol ink to color them. But these with the oxidized copper, I think, look really classy. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share this with anybody else who's interested in creating. It's so much fun, and I really, really appreciate you guys. So until next time, bye.